Hello Alpha, how may I help you? Hello Alpha, how may I help you? Hello Alpha, how may I help you?
Hello.
Hello Alpha, how may I help you?
Hello.
Hello Alpha, how may I help you?
Okay. Welcome back, everybody, to my YouTube channel. What you just witnessed was an example of a looping, actually. In our previous videos, we have been working on conditional statements. We worked on some control structures. In this particular video, we are going to be talking about some looping structures. So what's looping? Like you just noticed, looping is the aspect of repeating a particular procedure again and again. In some cases, it might be a bug or an error like you just got, but damn, that's not always the case. Looping is also some useful concept. Well, if you wish to build those kind of stuffs on your machine without any extra application needed, all you need is just your machine and an audio output. Like if your machine has a speaker, it's perfect. You can use that. If you wish to know about this, well, you can get that on one of my videos on VBS scripts. Nevertheless, talking about looping, let's talk about the format of a for loop. The format of a for loop is just like here for, then we say okay, the counter, we say counter. For counter equals to initial value, like first value. For counter equals to first value. For a counter equals to first value. 2. Counter might be okay to a particular condition, to a certain condition. Then we must specify an incrementation order. Is it increasing or decreasing? Like, are we going to be counting in an increasing order or counting in a decreasing order? Like for example, in this case, we're going to be saying okay, counter increasing. If the counter is increasing, we basically use counter plus plus, and if the counter is decreasing, we say counter minus minus. So for the counters from the first value to a particular condition relative to the counter, of course, we're increasing the counter. This is the case where you're moving like from counter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we could still have something like counter minus minus if we're actually moving like from 10 downwards. So here now comes the particular instructions we are to be executing. So this is basically how a for loop format is. For example, let's say you want to count from maybe 1 to 15. You say okay, for counter equals to 1 up to counter let's say up to counter being strictly less than 16. Since we are to end at 15, taking counter in an increasing order, we can decide to just print the counter. For example, the counter here is a variable that's just there to be counting. This could be an I, a J, an A, a B. Be counting numbers from 1 to 5, for example. So let's get the code actually. So we print the counter from 1 to 10. Is this going to work? There's only one way to know. Well, we return a 0. And as you can see, it shows up from 1 to 10. Let's try to get a series of the multiples of maybe a number like let's say 5, for example. In that case, well, I wish to change this counter actually to I, because it's actually some, I don't know, it's too bulky. For I equals to 1 to I strictly less than 10, it's going to be taking I from 1 to 10. It's going to stop at 10 because 10 is the last value strictly less than 11 in an increasing order. If we wish to print the multiples of value x might be, I'm going to be printing f. What am I actually printing? Remember, I would have to print maybe let's say in this, if for example x was equals to 3 and I want to get the multiples of 3, I'll have to print x times 1, I'll have to print 3 times 1, 3 times 2, 3 times 3, 3 times 4, 3 times 5, 3 times 6, 3 times 7, all right, down to maybe 10. So if you just noticed, we now have this I we can use to be multiplying there. So maybe if you want to use x times 3, we can use x times I repeatedly. So that's what we are practically going to be using. Percentage D, taking it to a new line. What are we actually using? We are using x times the I. Let's try and see if it actually works perfectly. We have it, so 3, 9, 3, 6, 9, 12. You see, these are the first 10 multiples of 3. How did it actually work? We had 3 values. We had an I, we had an x, and then we had the output, what you had on the screen. We had the print. So well, in the first case, what actually happened was that for I we had 1. Remember, I started from 1 in our for loop. In the for loop, I starts from 1, and x at that point is 3. You see, x being 3, that means it's going to be printing x times I, that's 3. We go down in the next scenario, I now becomes 2 because we are actually incrementing I. We are taking I from 1 to right down to 11. So we take I being 2. And if I is to 3, x remains the same. Remember, we haven't changed anything about x. We are just printing the value of x times I. In this case, it gives us a 6. And that's just how it happens again and again. That's how we get a 9. And that's just how the scenario goes right down until we get to 30. So that's somehow a nice use of a for loop. So hoping you've actually understood the for loops. If you have any question, you can bring it down in the comments. So, well, thanks for watching this particular video. Hope to see you in our next video.